Recording. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Legacy and Impact. We are nearing the end of August. August 21st is the date, 2023. A lot's going on in the world, and it is always a privilege and an honor to welcome everybody to our call. And I know we've got Stephanie out in the Michigan area, as I recall, Glenn Nielsen out in Illinois, Jeff out in Southern California, and Chris Perry's joining us from Florida. And so it is, as always, it's a privilege and an honor to welcome you. So we have all four corners of the state for the most, the country for the most part. So Jeff, are you able to share with us anything? Can you speak?
Yes, I'm here. I'm just sitting in a massage chair and enjoying this time.
Nice. So question, because apparently a hurricane came through Los Angeles. Did anything happen? Was it uneventful? Was it worthwhile discussing, or what was that like?
Well, let's just say they had a lot of emergency warnings that were happening on our phones to notify us. A little bit east of here, toward Palm Deserts, Palms 29, pretty well much in that path, Orange County, from San Diego to Orange County, they got a lot of flash flood. So in the low-bearing areas, they had a lot of floods, and the water was coming pretty rapidly. It filled up the LA River pretty quickly, but they were actually prepared. And so I didn't really see any problems. So we did have a few cars to get
You're breaking
high
up.
water, and it took off. So there was a few rescued, but other than that, oh, sorry, it wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty good. We handled it quite well.
Very good. Very good. I know that Southern California, because we really don't get weather there, the news is always infamous for creating drama and weather all around a simple rainstorm, which would be nothing to those people in Michigan or out in like in Florida. They said, "Oh, it's your first hurricane." Yeah, relax. It's so funny. Me down in Mexico, everybody's reaching out to me. Oh my God, are you safe? Are you safe? Yeah, I'm on the other side of the country, so don't worry about me. So, no, it is all good. That's great news. But I love weather and natural disasters when they show up. Right? They're obviously traumatic for us from certain perspectives, but they have the incredible ability of uniting humanity, right? Crisis and natural disasters bring us together, and all of a sudden our neighbors are important to us. That's what I love about natural disasters in Southern California. I've ridden out a handful of significant earthquakes, and it's always a humbling experience. So I'm always glad when that sort of stuff shows up, reminds us that we're not in control. Right? Anybody have any stories about anything exciting that has happened to you this week? Again, as always, you're entrepreneurs, so you should always be in the field, always looking, always hustling, always working on something. Anybody have anything to share? Met somebody cool, door opened, made a significant sale, lost a ton of money?
Well, I did learn a lot about the Spendthrift Trust, and because it's a Grand Tour Trust, and I was learning about the structure on it, and it's actually quite interesting on how that works, and that seems like that's the best trust to get. I was thinking about getting a business and also a Spendthrift, which is a Grand Tour Trust.
Spendthrift.
Spendthrift, that's it.
Thrift Trust. It is designed for people who have a bunch of money that they want to leave to their next generation, but they don't want them to squander it away. So it's designed to preserve its value and basically drip money out or drip resources out so it cannot be depleted, right? That's the objective of the spendthrift. And again, like we had talked about, those of you who are not weren't on the call last week, we talked a lot about some of the trusts that I've been able to start in putting in place for some clients. And the trust that we are leaning towards is it's a multifaceted trust. It's a non-grantor, spendthrift, irrevocable. There's a number of elements, but those are the key elements to it. And so, hey, Rebecca, how are you? So when exploring trusts, not all trusts are created equal. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, I'm glad, Jeff, you're in the learning process, as am I, as we all are, right? So did you learn anything in specific that got you excited?
Well, not really. I mean, I was also looking at the business trust, which it seemed like it was a little stronger trust. You can actually put the provisions of the trust or spin trend trust within the business trust to protect, the elders or the young ones of the family when you pass away. So I thought the business trust was actually a little bit stronger and a little bit more desirable for what I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah, no, it's that's good. There's collecting information when you're, and I can get you on the phone with some of our trust specialists. So, and that's all they do is trusts, and when you're ready. So again, collecting information. That's
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
My dad set up a trust back in the 80s. How can I go about pulling up the trust so I can actually see it someplace?
I don't know. Do you have you don't have a copy of the trust?
Yeah, my mom does, but she doesn't remember things like she used to, so I don't know where that paperwork actually is or anything. And I was just curious, where I might start to maybe even begin to look at the trust and see how it's set up and whatnot.
Yeah. You got to get your hands on it or find out who wrote it, who issued it. The bank.
And which state
Yeah.
state that it's in also. It
Correct.
depends on which state it's in.
It's in Florida.
I think because I was reading about it, I will actually do some search on that and come back with you. But I think it goes to the city office or the county records office. So when you file that, it goes up on that. But I'm not for sure. But
It
check
depends.
that this week and let you know.
And it might even be Maryland too. So I'm not even sure about that because he could have said it in the early 80s. I just don't know when it was.
Yeah, it depends because some of them are outside the government. Sometimes they're not registered. They may just have an EIN number. But it's from a banking perspective, if you are on as power of attorney or anything like that, then you can start getting access to it. But as always, there's process attached to that. Excuse me. There's process attached to trying to get access because oftentimes these trusts are structured to protect and remain anonymous. Actually, I'm going to just step off. I got to grab a cup of water. Hold on.
Yeah, Chris, I got some information I can send to you. I've been studying this all week long, finding out different type of structures on the trust. They're actually pretty interesting in the way they structure that.
Okay,
And
thank you, Jeff.
I found a little YouTube site that allows you to, and it teaches you how to go to some of these websites that offer you to build your own trust. Um, but it doesn't give you all the details, because I tried to comment back on them and I'm saying, it shows you how to build your own. You can go to these free websites and you can download, and then as soon as you download, you can cancel the prescription. And so you'll have a copy of it so you can actually fill it out online. But you got to go to the ones that have attorney sites that the attorneys are writing up the trust. But the one thing I noticed that they don't talk about is how to set it up with the bank account, which is quite interesting because you need the provisions in there to set it up for the bank account. I mean, you know, you could do your own little trust yourself, but trying to get it set up for the bank account, you need provisions and written contracts to get in there, connect to the bank account. But yeah, I'll send you some information on it that I've already got. That I've already been studying already this week.
Yeah, and in regards to that, trust is different than an LLC. Because when you're looking to structure a trust, you want it to stand the test of time. You want it for generations. You want it to be able to ultimately meet its purpose without question, right? So you want to have all of the within each trust, it should come with its own the precedents of the law that uphold it, right? And that's, again, the guys that I'm working with, that's their specialty. And but again, I really encourage you guys to start going down that path, because as we're seeing within the government, there's some crazy ass overreach, and I'm very, very concerned. That's why part of the reason why I started going down that path, to help some clients protect themselves as well as my family. So very good. All right. Good evening, Rebecca Cassidy. How are you? Glad to see you again. All is good?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Everything good?
Yes.
Very good. The job
Just
is
plugging in. It's been a minute.
yeah,
Just
it's all good. We're here, and always glad to see you. So okay, cool. Anybody else have anything to share in regards to real estate or stocks or concerns, banks closing in your neighborhood, anything in that space?
Well, our bank took all their tellers out of it,
Mm,
and there's just an ATM machine that you can go in and hit the ATM machine, and if you need to actually talk to somebody, there's somebody there to help you, but they can't handle money there anymore.
yeah, they did that at one of the chases locally where we had some accounts. And again, just pay attention to that stuff. You got to scratch your head. Even down in Mexico, where we are, they're starting to put in a lot more of the self-checkout checkers and things like that. It's all that automation is geared towards again, lowering overhead and limiting access. No, because if people can't get access to their money or whatever, they don't have somebody to directly interact with, what are you going to do?
True.
Right. Well, that's it.
Yep.
And I know, again, a lot of restaurants, they're not accepting cash. And I heard that in some of the banks down in Australia, they are not allowing people to take cash out. There's it's weird. That's weird. So, but we're not going to solve that problem, but just pay attention. Pay attention. All right. Anybody have anything else? All right. So as you guys know, I'm an advocate for taking action, right? And taking action comes in a lot of different forms. Just getting onto this call on a regular basis is taking action, right? What you do from Tuesday morning until Monday afternoon, I expect you all should be doing something that is moving in the direction of your pursuits or your passion or your entrepreneurial endeavors, et cetera, right? We're not in control of what happens to us, but we are in control and responsible for that how we respond to those circumstances, right? And so if you guys recall, a few weeks back, or for several weeks, we were running into electrical problems where we were having blackouts and the internet and things like that down here in Mexico. Right? And a number of the calls, I was prepared for them, but in the end, I couldn't get on because there was no electricity or no internet, right? And that registered in my head of this is unacceptable. Would everybody agree, right? If you're trying to conduct business and that which you need to do, it's like, something's going on. And I knew that they were working on something. And now this past week, they've literally put in probably 60 or 70 power poles along the roadway because there's so much development going on in this area. And I think the system was just being tested and they knew they had to upgrade it, but the demand with heat and air conditioning and all of that sort of stuff was taking its toll on the infrastructure that they had in place, right? But nonetheless, the point is that I registered in my head, if this doesn't change, I've got to move. I've got to do something, right? Because it was unacceptable to me and it's unacceptable to you guys, right? So this time last week, Monday, Linda had said to me, she says, the kids start school in 2 weeks and now the kids are on a different schedule. And I'm sharing this story with you to help you see things in your life so that you can start doing things and not be afraid, not be a little bit more bold and courageous possibly. So the kids are starting school next Monday is their first day of school. And now because the age difference of the kids, they're on 2 completely different schedules. They're both dropped off at different times and they're picked up at different times. And we're kind of far, we're about 20-25 minutes away from the school. So Linda says to me, we got to move, says we got to be closer to the school. Otherwise it's going to drive me nuts. And so last week we said, okay, if we had to move, where would we move? Where can we move where we're going to get, somewhere that's better, somewhere that's affordable, somewhere that has more value for us and is still in the realm of affordability, right? Because part of the reason we bought this condo, we bought it so that we could lower our overhead. I mean, if you didn't have any rent to pay, that's a good situation. If you have no overhead, that's a really good situation to be in. So we've been here for about 6 months. And so we decided, tell you what, we're ready to rent this place. So we decided we're going to rent the condo that we bought for roughly $550, $600. And now we have a place, a 3-bedroom, actually a brand new condo that is 4 or 5 doors down from the place that the exact condo that we were originally going to purchase when we first moved here. And we decided not to do it. But instead, we're renting a brand new condo in a beautiful complex with multiple pools and gym and great neighbors for $850. So we're going to rent this condo for $550, $600 and move to a new place. And ultimately, it's only going to cost us an additional $250. Be in a much more stable neighborhood and with electricity and internet and all of that, much more stable. So again, that all happened in the last week. We signed the documents or signed on Wednesday, moved in on Thursday and Friday, and now Monday I'm still at the condo because our internet's not up and running yet. But hopefully you'd agree that that's a productive week, right? So I share this with you because what's going on in your life and what's working for you and what's not, right? My mentor told me a long time ago, he said, if things aren't working for you, move. You're not a tree. Make sense? One time I had left Toronto and I was living up in Seattle. And in Seattle, there isn't really a film business in Seattle, but it's used as a backdrop for filming. And I was producing at the time. And there was a TV show called Northern Exposure being filmed up there, and there were a lot of movies being filmed up in the Seattle area, but there was no real work going on. I originally wanted to work right in Seattle and link up with some productions and generate some work that way, but in the end, it didn't show up. And I was working in Vancouver for a couple jobs, and I was working in LA for a couple jobs. And I called my friend up in Toronto, and she said, "Hey, how are things going?" And I said, "Well, we've been here for roughly almost 8 months, and there's not a lot of work. And so I'm not sure what to do." So she said to me, she says, "Well, Steve, you're a producer, right? Imagine if you were running a production in your scenario, and no matter which direction you turn, you couldn't get it done. What would you do?" I said, "I'd move it to another city that's more user friendly." She says, "Okay, you got your answer." And so after living in Seattle for about 9 months, where 2/3 of my life was fantastic, but there was no money coming in. I was newly married. This is back in 1981. No, 1991, sorry, 1991, 1992. And then moved back down to LA and started working here in the film business. So the point is that when you look at your life, you have to figure out, okay, what's working for me, what's not working for me. Where am I excelling? Where am I held back? Because a lot of times I find myself in a situation where I'm anxious to do stuff, but things aren't lining up for me. Can anybody relate to that?
Oh, yeah, things
Yes.
happen like that
Oh,
for me
yeah.
too.
Right? So, and with recently, a number of us, we're active with Novatech, and we've got a few different platforms, and now those platforms are either being looked at by the SEC, or there's some weird stuff going on, stuff we're not in control of. Our instincts are, we all of our time and energy, all of our focus goes into that. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And again, never run backwards, always moving forward. Semper adelante, always moving forward. And while the other stuff starts settling in. Okay? I also have another cryptocurrency deal, which has been going on for much longer than anticipated, but it's a sizable deal and it's international. And because crypto has been so all over the place, the deal gets close because of all the right things, but then something changes, Bitcoin goes way high or goes way low, and now all of a sudden all the parameters change, right? And so our instinct is to put all of our attention into that and going, what's going on? I need this deal. I need it to deal. Like, no. It's when you say you need something, that's when you're guaranteed to lose. So you just kind of let it go. What I do, what we do in our household is we just have a brief conversation with God and say, thank you for sorting out. Thank you for showing me. Thank you for showing me that all of this challenge has already been solved. Thank you for showing me that this challenge has been solved. Thank you for showing me that this challenge has already been solved. And then you move forward. And always things are going to fall into place when you surrender to God. And hopefully that makes sense to everybody, right? Because otherwise it drives you nuts. In real estate, you know, you're anxious for the sale, you want the sale, you want something to happen, you're pushing. And there was an analogy that was given to me before. Anybody ever seen a fly trying to get through a window? We had a house in Canada, beautiful lake view house, and it was all windows all across the front of it looking out to the lake, which was beautiful. And in the middle of all of these windows, there was a very simple French door. And the flies, if they would come in, they would naturally be drawn to the big windows, and they'd kill themselves trying to get out. Where all they needed to do, if they just stepped back, flew 1 foot to the right, they could have flown right through the door. Right? And oftentimes that's how we live our lives. I'm trying to, if this is feeling or you're experiencing, you got to let it go. And then you go, okay, I know that there's value in this, but I'm just going to let it go for a little bit while I focus on this. And the other thing that you're focusing, it doesn't have to be business. It could be personal development. It could be spiritual continuity. It could be any number of things. Because though we're entrepreneurs, our main focus is not our business. Our business is an offshoot of who we are and our purpose. Right? God's using each and every one of us in a very, very unique way. And the biggest challenge is oftentimes we can't see exactly what he's doing. Oftentimes we want something so bad that we put ourselves in jeopardy when God says, you know, I've got something so much bigger for you. You just gotta be open to seeing what other doors may exist, what other opportunities may exist. Make sense? And in business, our job is to always keep moving. So again, if you're running into challenges, let it go. Go find a new client. Go meet some new people. Go open doors. Get some referrals from friends. Every day, almost every day, I have people calling me up seeking tax advice, or I was referred by somebody in the equation. So when people are reaching out to you, or if people aren't reaching out to you, that means you've got to go into the marketplace and you've got to make sure people know what you do, the value that you bring to them and bring to the world. But all of you guys have come as a result of some type of referral from somebody. And in your life and in your business should be the exact same. You should have people referring people to you. If not, you got to define yourself, got to brand yourself, got to get your name out there, got to be open and asking questions, looking for referrals, looking for, pursuing something, offering support. Because in the marketplace, especially now, people are looking for value. People are looking for solutions. Right? What do you do? What do you do for a living? What do you do to bring value to other people? What do you do to expand your knowledge? These are the questions, right? Anybody been looking into Section 8 real estate in some of the smaller markets, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee? They have properties out there you can buy for $40,000, $50,000, $30,000. Almost all the real
Yeah,
estate.
but they're not that much profitable, aren't they? They're not profitable.
Well, almost everybody that I'm speaking to these days when it comes to real estate, we're heading in the direction of Section 8. Do you guys understand the value of Section 8? You know what Section 8 housing is?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the government pays for it, and it's a guaranteed paycheck coming on a monthly basis.
That's it. That's it.
Granted, the person that they're helping has to pay like 30%, but the regular 70%, I believe it is, you know, it's all government money, so you can count on that money.
Right.
Just maybe not so with the 30%, and I don't know how you go about handling it if they don't pay.
Well, you screen the people that you're putting in, and you choose good people. You know, and there are different mechanisms for doing that, but because of the economic times right now, people are not, people with their new acquisitions, they're leaning towards low cost housing, and you buy a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 home, and if you can get $1,000 a month rental, that's a freaking incredible ROI from the government. And as long as you have your own screening process, you set it up so that way you're getting quality people in there. Get that government money. That's the name of the game. That's the future as I see it right now. Otherwise, who's going to be able to afford it?
Is that why all these developers are trying to buy all this property and all these lands for mainly properties to rent out?
Well, again, in the rental market, you've had huge corporations going in and buying up massive amounts of property, driving up the price. The Zillows and the BlackRocks, they're out there buying up portfolio properties so that they can then control the marketplace, right? And rentals in specific. There is a significant housing shortage, meaning that there's always new people coming into the country as well as that want to move, as we've been discussing. Again, I keep going back to California. California is a really tough market because everything's so ridiculously expensive. But most cities, when you have people moving in from California into smaller cities in Tennessee and all of that, the majority of them, they need new houses. It's a boomtown. Property values in Florida have increased by 12%. I believe in Tennessee, they're up 9%. And Buffalo, New York had actually increased by 8%. There are certain communities that are more attractive to people moving from some of the more expensive cities. And that's where the housing crisis exists, because people move from California or wherever where they couldn't afford a house, and now they're moving somewhere else where they can actually afford a house. So that movement, again, the movement of money is always a good thing. When money stagnates, it's bad. It's terrible for everyone. So for us, depending upon where you're at in the spectrum, if you have land, you can figure out how to build, put either a low-cost ADU on it or a mobile home on it, depending upon the type of foundation that you have for it. You can keep your costs down and get that property generating money. Because if it's just a piece of land, it's really not going to generate money unless you're able to park trucks on it and you can rent it out that way. But
Or a
Um,
campsite.
Campsites, yeah, they're doing that out here in California in some of the areas. Heard about somebody in out in Joshua Tree area, which I've got some property out there. And the larger pieces of property, we talked about that last week. Somebody took a 13-acre piece of rural land, and they've structured it so that they're going to have some X number of campsites and X number of tiny houses, which can be rented out. And so you've got an option. And then there you have a raw piece of land that is now turned into an income generator. That's the game. That's the game, especially when the economy is in transition, which it is. People are leaving.
Just so you know, too,
No.
during the electrical grid, because you said you were having issues down there.
Yeah.
They were the electrical grid was relying on parts for the transformer from China, and when the lockdown, they couldn't get the parts that they needed to make the new transformers. And what they wound up doing was refurbishing the old transformers to get some more life out of them, but until they can get new parts in for everything.
Yeah, all of that.
And
yeah,
and
supply chain issues are
down here when you build a house, FP or the power companies have so many days in order to put power to that house.
In where you are in Florida.
Yeah. And they were having some issues there and hard times. So
yeah, it's the laws of supply and demand, but that when you are the PUC, the Public Utility Commissions, there are rules and regulations that the utility providers have to provide. That's what they do. They were given the license to provide the service in the area, and oftentimes that's been subsidized by the government. So there's rules and regulations that are in place, right? But when it comes to housing, just look around, right? Don't be afraid. I want all of you guys out of the box and super excited because you're looking at stuff. So one of the things that we're always looking at properties, and we were going to buy a house here because somebody was willing to finance it for us, self-finance. And so the price was really good. We found one condo for 110,000 in a complex where the lowest prices are 150, 160,000. So it's like, wow, we should buy this. And that was one of the places we were going to move into. But problem is that in the purchase, then all of our spare money was going to be tied up. Right? Because that's, again, if you can finance traditionally in the United States, that's fine. But down here in Mexico, you've got to have either some creative financing. But it's, you're not looking, if you're dealing with creative financing, you're not dealing with 30-year mortgages, which is amortized so effortlessly. You're dealing with, we had structured a deal where we'd have the house paid for within 2 years. But the problem with that is then all that money is then tied up in one property. And that one property won't generate enough money to justify putting all of it in there, all of your eggs in one basket. Right? That's where, again, we got a brand new house, hasn't even been lived in, and we're paying $850 a month for where it would have cost us $180,000. We would have had $180,000 tied up. Right? So these you got to be looking at all these different moving parts. So that's your homework for this week, is find the cheapest house in your neighborhood. Look around, see what the threshold is, right? And or once you've got that, find out what the cheapest house is in your state. And see what you can't find. See if you can't find a $30,000 or a $40,000 house, $50,000 house. and then reach out and say, hey, look, I'd like to buy your house. If you're first time home buyer, you can buy it for, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 out of your pocket. And then finance it. And then you set it up with, there's certain things you're going to need to learn, but the bottom line is, if you get a house, as long as it's not terrible inside, as long as it's relatively simple to rehab, meaning you can rehab it for under $3,000, you can buy those properties and go down that path.
One more thing about the power companies.
Uh-huh.
The power companies need to reduce their carbon footprint so much a year, and if they don't meet that requirement, then they get fined by the governments will fine them, and then we're the ones getting stuck paying the fines when they're getting hit by the larger fines, and it just all trickles down to us. So expect to see power starting to increase too over the years.
Absolutely. With that whole, zero sum, that's a crock of shit. That whole thing is crazy, and it's insanity trying to force feed something that is unnecessary. But that's not our deal. Our job is to figure out, okay, how do we make a ton of money in the equation and leave the politics to the politicians? So that's my philosophy. Any questions? Anybody starting any new companies? Anybody have any brainstorm ideas? I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning. Supposed to go to the gym at 6, but I'm up at 5 and I'm wide awake because God's planting seeds in my head. Anybody waking up early? What do you do?
From time to time, you meditate.
When you wake up early, you sit in the living room in the dark, say, okay, God, here I am. Show me what you want to show me. Bring it on. Bring it on.
I just stay stretched out in bed longer.
God wants to see you move. So one of the things that happens, again, we're always looking, always scratching our heads, always trying to see how we can generate money or help people. One of our dear friends down here in Mexico, he recently was let go from the rental car company that he worked at. Awesome guy, incredible guy. And he'd been working with them for a long time, and something came up. He actually ran out and got his own personal car washed or something like that. And when he came back, they fired his ass. And it made no sense to me, but it seems to me that transition was upon them inside the operation, and they wanted to either get rid of somebody, or they wanted to use him as a fall guy, right? So we took him out for lunch last week, and of course our question is, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you got in place? How do we do this? So there's a really good possibility we're going to be opening up our own rental car company down here. Again, out of creating something out of nothing, right? And that's our job. Our job is to see what's available, and if there's a way to pull it together and make money, right? So we've come up with a structure in order to, as well as a marketing plan. I'd had this idea before, but again, once he was let go from his rental car company, it's like, okay, God, maybe now's the time, right? So looking to finance 3 to 6 cars initially and get the wheels spinning. We've got a marketing plan, we've got a name, we've got a whole bunch of things. We've got a strategy to enter the marketplace, get tapped into, right? And again, that came up this week as well. What did you do this week, right? That's always the question. Are you doing everything you can? Are you moving stones? Are you reaching out? Are you What are you doing? So, anybody have anything to share? Anything to say? Any inspiration? So last week we were talking about trust. I am now working with a friend of mine who were able to get people set up with trusts as well as life insurance. I write this website down. It's legacy dot live LIVEIWS legacy dot live or live IWS.com. Do a quick screen share. So if you guys are interested in learning, again, some of the stuff that we've talked about before, I started working with my friends because there's perfect alliance between, or perfect synergy between what we're doing and what we stand for with Legacy and Impact and what this organization does, Infinite Wealth Strategy or Strategist. With reference to life insurance, there are mechanisms, because there's so much uncertainty in the world, I'm highly recommending people get set up with life insurance. It's very, very affordable considering what you get from it within this infrastructure. If you need money in order to be more entrepreneurial, it's available, but you just have to go through the process, right? You initiate a whole life policy where you could then get access to $90,000 to $100,000, and that keeps increasing. Within a couple of years, you could have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 available to you. I'm also dealing with some people that have a lot more money, where within a very short period of time, they're going to be having dividends in excess of 6 figures within 3 years of initiating this, right? That's income that you could then live off of simply because you took action. This is something I'm encouraging everybody to explore, not to sell you, but to get you set up, right? Because by moving just a couple things around, you shift a couple things here, kind of like what we did with our condo here. What we're doing is we wanted to move, we could have easily said, oh, but we can't afford it because we've got this and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, rather than saying we can't do it, that, okay, well, what if we took this and we rented this condo and then we got a bigger place, nicer place, closer to the school that has more value from all perspective, and it ends up only costing us $250 a month extra for 3 times the house in a beautiful community. That's how we need to be thinking. I'm going to shift a couple things around, and I'm going to get a lot more value for a lot less money. And hopefully that makes sense. All right.
Steve, did you put the link? Oh, you didn't put the link in this chat, huh?
I can put it in. There we go.
Okay, then I can copy it. Thank you.
Chat. How do I do this? There we go.
Well, and the yeah, and let's see. Where you click on chat. Probably. And then I can copy it and
Yep, no problem.
put it.
I'm with you.
Okay, cool.
There you go. So
Oh, got it. Thank you.
yeah, and again, and you can just request a session, and we kind of go through it and figure it out. You fill out the information, and then we structure. Everybody can afford this, but it's foundational puzzle pieces that allow you to get a lot more, especially right now, because there's so much uncertainty with reference to opportunities in the crypto space, and the SEC's just misbehaving right, left, and center. I've come across a couple more things, but I'm really not. I'm not recommending it, just because though there may be some money there, I don't have enough confidence in the industry. I haven't lost confidence in Bitcoin or the long term, but the government overreach, I've lost a lot of respect, because they're just trying to squeeze us so they can usher in their own digital currency. I know that's what's going on, right?
That's true.
That's it, and we had Tom on last week. They've done exceptionally well with XRP. They were riding it out through the trial and all of that, the court case and the suit, and now they're able to finally get a bunch of their money back, but they're still in it for the long haul. They believe XRP is going to go through the roof, and people believe that Bitcoin's going to go through the roof and all these things. But if you don't have enough financial resources to just throw it in there and let it sit, that's not really a good use of money. That's why I'm recommending the getting some life insurance structure, because again, when you do that, it's instrument driven, it's secured, it's insured. I mean, that's where all the big banks and the insurance companies have their money. They're tied up because that money's guaranteed. People gonna die, and that policy will pay out whether you do anything or not. And so we're just leveraging, you got a little bit of money, I can throw it here, or I can throw it there. If I throw it there, it compounds and turns into 7 to 10 times as much money as I put in within 30 days. So that's a no-brainer. And then,
And that's the information you just gave me, correct?
correct.
Okay, just making sure.
And it's actually some friends of ours that we know. I've known them for over 17 years, and you may know the guys as well, Queen. So
Okay.
so it's just they're good people, and they're doing it right. So all right. So any questions? Again, tonight's call was really about I want to get into people's heads. I want to hear what's going on in your world and in your life, right? If you got a job and your job is feeding you, fantastic. Make sure that you're either all in with pursuing health, and you're in the gym first thing in the morning, you're getting your health in order. If not that, then make sure that you're pushing in something new. You're heading in a new direction. You're figuring out how to finance low income housing, or finding out something in the real estate world, right? Another thing we had talked about before, this was a few weeks back. I don't know if you guys recall, but with somebody said, "Oh, I really want to be investing in the market. What do I do?" Right? And he's kind of off of the crypto world and that. And he said, I just want to be investing in the stock market. And I'm not a huge advocate of investing in the stock market unless you're a master, unless you've developed those skills. But if you have some money, you can set up your own little incubator and sit some money set up an account with like TD Ameritrade, where you are trading your own account by the Standard & Poor's S&P 500. And what you do is buy a lump sum of the S&P, and then take 50% of it, just 50% of it, and just let it ride, because it will increase over time. Okay. But then take 50% of it, and then as you're watching it over like 3 or 4 weeks, you'll be able to see it go up and see it go down, and see it go up and see it go down. And these are the S&P's, the biggest companies in the world, Google and Apple, they're all in there. So it's 100% secure. You're never going to lose by investing in the S&P, because if it goes down, it's always going to come back up. but watch it for a little bit, just like we did with Bitcoin, to see where its brackets are, where its movement points are, and then take 50% of it. And when it's high, when you feel it's reached its high, sell 50% of it and watch it go down. And then buy 50% of it back and watch it go back up. And then sell 50% of it, watch it go back down, and then buy 50% of it, right? And you'll find that in that scenario, if you start with $1,000, before you know it, you're going to have $1,300. Before you know it, you're going to have $2,000. Before you know it, you're going to have $5,000, simply by buying and selling the exact same stock over and over again, right? And again, the value with doing the 50-50 method, or you can do 70-30 or whatever, is when you hold on to it, right? That's going to create some stability in your mind, right? But it's not going to generate that much money because it goes up and down and up and down and up and down, or you're not making any money. And then that's where, when you take half of it and you buy and sell, that second half that you're buying and selling is going to generate so much more money than the first batch. And once you understand that, once you see that, you're going to understand the market so much better, right? And you may, once you're really getting it and you're seeing how that buying and selling is generating revenue for you, you may want to shift it to 70-30, where you hold on to 30% and then you buy and sell 70%, right? But you don't need a whole bunch of stocks. You just need to make sure that the one that you buy, the S&P, is rock solid. Make sense? So there's tons of strategies.
Just so you know,
Go ahead.
with stocks, you want to buy 100 shares at a time, because you're paying a fee for every 100 shares you buy, basically. So if you buy 50 shares, it would cost you X number of dollars. Compared to 100 shares, it would still be the same X number of dollars, whatever it is. I don't really remember what it is, but you're better off to buy it in lots of 100s.
Correct.
In even
Correct.
100 rate. Yeah.
Well, but again, there are certain things you have to learn. But again, if you do not have a TD Ameritrade account, start there. And then they've got a program called Thinkorswim. Start learning there, right?
TD Ameritrade's been sold out. Charles Schwab bought them.
Oh, okay. So, but they're still under the same banner, right? Or is it under Schwab's banner now?
They're till the end of this year. They're TD Ameritrade. Charles Schwab will be changing the name next year.
Got it. Well, hopefully they'll preserve the Thinkorswim program, because that's the educational program, because it's brilliant, right? So the point is there's free education out there, and learning this stuff, again, we have to look at this moment in time as precious, right? Because it really is. We have to look at this moment in time as the time when we get to learn and we have to learn, right? I don't know if I've shared this story with you, but my father was an immigrant from Scotland. He met and married my mom in Canada. She was originally from Toronto, but she was raised in England and Ireland, and they met and married in Canada. And at some point in 1960, they had 2 kids up in Canada, and then they moved down to Southern California. All my grandparents did. My two sets of grandparents moved down, and then my parents moved down. And I was born in Los Angeles. I was the first child born down here. And then I had 2 other sisters. So my father, he was in the automotive business. He sold auto parts, and he did well. And he was a salesman. He drove around to the gas stations and the garages and made sure they had the parts, and developed relationships. And the car industry was booming back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. There was a lot of there was a lot going on, and different times in his business or different times in the industry, things would slow down, and my dad eventually opened up his own business, right? because he got frustrated with layoffs and slowdowns and things like that. Those things that are inevitably part of the economy, right? But when it came time for me to want to choose a career and start pursuing something, my dad took me aside and he said, Stephen, I'd like you to take over the family business. My brother had become a mechanic, also in the automotive business. And he said he wanted me to take over our auto parts store. And I said to him, I said, Dad, out of all due respect to you, I've seen how hard you work. I don't want to work that hard. I want to work smart. I want to make a lot of money. And he says, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'm thinking about going into the entertainment business. Right? And he said, well, that's not what we do. You know, that generational thinking, our parents are always trying to protect us. And he says, you know, that's not what we do. You know, like that's like, you got to be born into that business. And why don't you just take over the parts store? And I said, no, Dad, I believe I can do this. And so he basically, you know, said, okay, if you want to do this, then yeah, go do it. Do your best. Right. And, you know, and I started off in the bottom and I climbed my way up and eventually, you know, produced a few Super Bowl commercials and won awards and ran big production companies. And, you know, it was a fairly glamorous life and I did very, very well. Right. But the point is this, is that our parents can't teach us something that they don't know. My dad couldn't teach me the things that I learned by going outside of the family business. Right? And I think we're at that moment in time right now, is we really, really, really need to be learning new things if we want ourselves and our families to survive. I'm very, very concerned and even scared for a lot of the people in America. And that's why I'm doing everything in my power to position my family, myself, and my friends, you guys included, in these mechanisms, these wealth mechanisms that are going to allow us to not just survive, but freaking thrive, right? Because when you're dealing with trusts and you're dealing with life insurance and you're dealing with wealth principles and you're dealing with real estate and you're dealing with, you know, these investments and the stuff that we learn now, once you've learned it, you can't unlearn it. And then we get to teach our kids. So make sure that you're seizing this moment right now. It's a great time to learn. Transition is always a great time to make money. You're not a tree. Be bold, be courageous, make sure that you're open to being and living powerfully. Make sure that you're open to realizing that maybe, just maybe, you're not living up to your full potential. Right? Maybe God's got something really, really big and hairy and scary for you. Right? I get scared on a fairly regular basis when shit starts coming down, when things that I was hoping for don't pan out, when promises were made and they end up not coming through, right? It's never going to be easy living on the edge. But where we are, we're in the leading edge of the time-space continuum. This moment of time has never existed. And the leading edge, as we move forward, every day there's a window of opportunity. Make sure you're seizing that day. Like I said, carpe diem. All right. There's a lot going on. Very exciting times.
I know what I need help with is teaching to speak with people about the self-directed Roth IRA or an IRA, because I'm around people that are younger, in their late 20s, early 30s, and I'm to explain to them that they need this for their security, but they just look at me like I'm trying to sell them something.
Correct.
And so I can see it in their eyes. And I've already had one guy I talked to a year ago about this. And I said, so have you done it yet? And he's, no, I haven't done it. And I said, so you're working all this overtime and working all this money and you're not putting it to work. What are you doing with it? Oh, I'm buying my new phones, my new computers. I'm buying my, friends out some dinners and stuff like that. I said, okay, so when you see that, you just realize, wow, that's the same road I went down. That's why I'm where I'm at today. So I understand it's a little difficult and it's hard to speak to the younger generation. And that's what skills I'd like to learn so I can show them what I've learned.
Well, it's, again, the skills are relatively simple, relatively simple. You go so much further when you're asking questions as opposed to telling people, right? Whoever's asking the questions is in control of the conversation, and it's learning how to ask good questions.
Good
And-
point. Thank
yeah.
you.
And so, and then you also don't make yourself the deal. You always want to edify somebody other than yourself who has helped you learn. I know how you feel. That's how I felt. But by listening to this guy here, what I found was there were a lot of things that I've been doing over the last 20 years that if I had applied this, I would have been significantly wealthier. You got to hear this. So, and then you funnel them information from people other than you. Same way, like, like we do in our conversation, you send me stuff, I send you stuff. It's that sharing mechanism that enrolls people in new thought. Right? And that's how
Thank you.
with the younger generation. Hey, look, I wish when I was your age, I know what I've learned thus far. If I knew it at your age, do you realize how much money you would make? And then a couple questions that are really good when you're dealing with younger people is, hey, if you could make $100,000 a year or $100,000 a month, which would you choose?
They probably say 100,000 a month.
And some of them will, and that's okay. When they say that, what they're telling you is, I'm not the one. I'm not the one you're looking to talk to. My brain is not ready yet. Right? And you don't need everybody.
Good to know that.
You're just, again, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But what you do is you go find three thirsty horses and they'll drink all day long. Right? You don't, again, you're only looking for a handful of people, and the rest, and life becomes fun when you're hanging out with people that are open, right? And you put them in, you get them into the right environment, you introduce them to the right people. One of my clients heard we had a great laugh. She came in because she has a 16-year-old son and she wanted him to get a job. And she said to him, Mom, I can't afford to get a job. I can't afford to work for like $15, $16 an hour because XYZ. He says, I want to go into sales, right? Which is, I want to be buying and selling stuff online. Again, that entrepreneurial. I said, introduce him to me, right? Because I will speak to him differently than you will, right? And again, the prophet is never welcome in his hometown. But the point is that when you find the right people, you don't, it's an effortless conversation. Spoke with a gentleman yesterday, maybe it was today. And no, it's today, sorry. And he, 2 years ago, he paid $400,000 in taxes for income that he made. And he said, because I'm talking to him about setting up a trust, he says, I don't want to do that ever again. I said, great, this is the solution. And of course, he says, well, I've got a few questions. I said, of course you do, right? But the way this is structured, this is why you don't have that issue moving forward, right? And again, whenever you're dealing with these trusts, whenever you're dealing with anything new, it's both exciting and scary, and there's a learning curve. If you had a brand new Ferrari that was dropped off to you today, you'd need to learn how to drive it. Right? You'd be excited, but you'd still need to learn how to drive it. And every time you drive it, you'd get better at driving it. Right? So all of these elements, the trusts, none of it is simple. But when you find people who have an expertise and experience, those are the ones that you trust, as long as they're not selling you, right? You're collecting information. You're a gold miner, you know? You guys realize that in a gold mine, the majority of the world's gold is still in the earth. You guys aware of that? And it's just so much work to get it out. Before, labor was cheaper and it was easier access. Now it's like, it's expensive. There's gold mines up in Alaska and all over the world, but the majority of the gold is still in the dirt. People just don't want to get dirty. Don't be afraid to get dirty. That's where the gold is. All righty. Have yourselves a great evening. Thank you very much for your time, for your presence, for your trust. Please have an awesome week. Please go and discover something you didn't know and come back next week and tell everybody. Say, holy shit, you wouldn't believe what I found. Holy shit, right? There's a lot of fun in discovery. God bless. Take care.
Thank you, Stephen.
God bless you too.
Received.